Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of TEPSA Presents. You are in for a treat, everyone, because it is a double episode Tuesday. So we had our normal 7 o'clock episode, and now we have another one. I'm Todd Nesloni. I'm your host. I'm the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. And I am so excited for tonight's conversation about PLCs. TEPSA is thrilled to bring you these TEPSA Presents conversations twice a month. And tonight, I've got two very special guests on with me. Cristi, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Hello. Thanks, Todd. I'm Cristi Parsons, and I am currently Assistant Superintendent and Principal at Hawkins ISD. I'm a Solution Tree Associate and just a busy mom of 2 college kids.
Oh, I'm busy, I am sure. And we also have on with us one of our National Distinguished Principal finalists from last year as well, Danieli. Danieli, tell everybody who you are.
Hi, I'm Danieli Parker. I'm principal at Hallsville North Elementary, where I have been principal for the last 7 years. And so I'm excited to be here again, Todd, to visit with you. I'm a mom of 3 kids, all in elementary age. And so I have been busy getting to get the taste of a parent of having students during the pandemic and shutdowns and virtual learning and trying to be a principal mom during all of that.
I'm sure. And Cristi, you've got to tell everybody kind of how you and Danieli know each other.
Well, Danieli, I was praying for an assistant principal in 2007, and Danieli was getting married. Is that right, Danieli? Was that on your honeymoon?
On my honeymoon.
Yes, she was on her honeymoon. And so I had interviewed several people and thought, we are not going to find an assistant principal. And she said, I can interview after my honeymoon. And I said, okay, we'll wait on you. And she walked in, and after question 2, I knew I wanted her.
I was laughing today, Cristi. I retold the story about you chasing me in your high heels in the parking lot.
I did. I was like, I want her. And so.
Oh, those are the best finds when you get kind of those moments where you just find the person and you have a crazy story to go with it as well. But Tonight's conversation is all about PLCs, something I know that both of you are very passionate about. And what better way to start the conversation than defining PLC? Because, we were talking beforehand and I have been guilty of it too. I think all of us think we know what a PLC is, and we all kind of think we know what the definition is, and we all kind of do it the way we think it's supposed to be done. But there really is a right and a wrong way to do this. So let's just start with the definition first. Go ahead and tell me how you would define it, Cristi.
Well, I am actually going to read DeFore's definition if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
An ongoing process in which educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research to achieve better results for the students we serve. So I think the most important words right there are collective, collaboration to serve students. Danielle, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and PLC is not just a meeting, Todd. Oftentimes when I talk to people about PLC, they'll say, well, it's something we do once a month. It's something we do once a week. And it's not that. It is truly a philosophy of our kids and working together as a team and creating a structure on your campus that allows collaboration and sharing of students. And it's something that we do every day. It's kind of who we become. It's not just something that defines us. We're not just going to a PLC meeting. PLC is what we do every day in every conversation that we have with coworkers and with teachers, with parents. It's what we do. It's what we believe in.
So Danielle and I always talk, Todd, about that it is a verb. It is not a noun. And so PLC is a verb. It's how we act. It's our way of doing things. It's our culture. It's not a noun. It's not a place. It's not a thing.
Well, and I love that y'all said that it's not just a meeting to get something done. Like, I think that's a whole mindset shift for a lot of people to have that. So I'd love to kind of hear your own personal journey. And when did that click for you that, a PLC is not just my once a week meeting that I have to have at this time in this room with these people?
Danielle, I think Danielle and I never really did call it a PLC meeting. Did we, Danielle?
No.
Never. We went to an institute and we knew that this was a name of something and research behind something she and I already believed in and did. We just now had research to support it. So we never called them PLC meetings from the beginning. But I will tell you, you have to embed the time together to collaborate. And so that's what we did. We embedded time during the day for teachers to have intentional collaboration. And our teachers did not like it at first. They did not want to go to the meeting. And I hear that as I work with districts, they don't want to go to PLC meetings because they're mandated. So that's how you have to get that psychological shift. If we are a PLC and it's not a meeting, one of our teachers used to say that they would talk on the way to the meeting and say they would rather drink Drano than go to our meeting.
Wow.
But now she's a principal in a PLC model campus. So, hey.
I love it. Danieli, I'd love to hear too. I think that is probably one of the hardest things is as a school leader, once you wrap your head around the difference in PLC, really communicating that correctly to your staff and your team is important. So when both of you kind of understood what you wanted PLCs to look like, how did you convey that to the teachers?
Well, Todd, you really have to train your staff. And as administrators, I remember going through administrative courses, and it talks to you about finding your key players on the campus, finding the teachers that other teachers look up to and that they influence. And so we had to find the key players on the campus, and we had to get their buy-in. They had to start believing in it, because if they started believing in it, then others would kind of get on board. They may not be like 100% buy-in, but they're like, okay, if that person's doing it, I can do it too. And so you kind of have to encourage, you have to show them that that's not a got you time. So you're going to have to build a lot of trust, and you're going to have to set the expectations that were set. And, and they'll say those are high expectations. Those are unrealistic expectations. You're like, no, these are the expectations. And then we were constantly following it up. What do you need to be successful? And so if there was ever an excuse, well, we don't know how to do it this way, then we provided training. We need these materials to make this happen. Well, okay, let's get them for you. We were often hit with like roadblocks. So we had to identify the key players and then take away the roadblocks, the reasons to why they couldn't do it or why it wouldn't work. We had to be there constantly to support. But Todd, we also had to be their cheerleaders. We had to identify like the things when they did it right. I'll never forget when Cristi and I opened North Elementary. We had a unique situation. We took 3 campuses that were all practicing and on this PLC journey, but they were in different stages. And we had to create a common mission and vision. We had to figure out what we were going to be like as North Elementary. And there was some people that just really didn't believe in it. We had high expectations for 1 grade level, and they still talk about this. This is still like the legend meeting where we came in, we had found stacks of worksheets and letters of the day and color of the week. And they always laugh about it. And they remember, the worksheets being slammed down and saying, we're not doing this anymore. This isn't going to happen. And we put them in like a 3-day balanced literacy boot camp. But in January, after we had our middle of the year reading data, we took them out and we celebrated. Now, it wasn't like a crazy night celebration. We took them out to lunch. But we celebrated it. We said, look what you did. And we really celebrated their success, and we talked about it, and we encouraged them, and we really built on that momentum. And then they felt what it was like to be successful, and they saw it was possible. And so now, when I sit in that grade levels meetings, 12 years later, we've had changes, we've had staff changes, but that expectation is still there, and we're still rolling.
Right.
Danieli, what I love that you said there, though, was the idea of how easy it is to celebrate them for the hard work they did. And I think that's something that's easy to forget. Like, we'll tell them, that's great, good job, but going that extra step to like take them out to lunch or to do something like that to celebrate, we've been teachers, they work hard. And so when your kids do show that growth because you've had to do all these changes, it feels good when somebody is celebrating you. So I love that you share that. So I'd love to hear too, from both of you, what is something that you thought would really work in a PLC or with the idea of PLCs, and it was like a total bomb and I would never do that again? Is there anything that comes to mind?
There's probably a lot.
Yeah, don't plan meetings on Fridays or Mondays. So in your master schedule, you embed time. Don't do it on Mondays and Fridays because you always have a holiday. We like our meet, and Danieli and I call our meetings, we call them based on what the objective is. So are we doing common plans? We call it a planning meeting. Are we using student data? So we're going to a data meeting. Are we putting kids in interventions? We call it an RTI meeting. So it's whatever your goal is for that time together. Well, in order to be successful, you have to be consistent in meeting. So Mondays and Fridays are terrible. They're terrible, terrible times to have embedded time during your day for meeting. That's the number one thing we didn't mess up on.
Danieli, can you think of anything?
Well, there's a lot. I'm just trying to think.
I think, Todd, sometimes as principals, when we see our staff stressed, we want to kind of take things off their plate. So we think, well, I'll do this for them, or and it could be simple stuff like a schedule or a template or something. And we overdo for our staff. Sometimes they have to have ownership in everything they're doing. And so really, sharing the workload with them on some things and not doing too much, because they have to have ownership of the work that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And if they don't feel the ownership and they don't feel like they have a say in that, and they don't buy into it, then they're not going to do it. And so I know that there was a time where I saw my staff stressing, and so I tried to do more for them, but in the end it was more of a negative because they didn't have ownership. It was Danieli's document versus their document, or Danieli's schedule versus their schedule. So really getting their input and their contribution to it is really key. So it was good intentions, it just negative effect.
So I was going to say, those good intentions bite you in the butt, because as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember doing that, and I thought I was doing so much good for them, and then in the end it was like, well, they didn't have ownership, so that didn't really matter to them. I just did all the work.
Yep.
Todd, I do have one that's very important that just came to my mind when Danieli was talking. So as I talked about, you have a goal during the time that you meet and the work to be done. And teachers' time is precious, and you don't want to waste their time. They want to know, this is what we're supposed to do. This is the work we're going to get done. This is our purpose. Well, I was wasting a lot of their time because I was coming in and doing managerial stuff. Do you remember this, Danieli? And my third grade team, they came to us and they set me down and they said, we have a problem. And I said, what? And they said, you said our work to be done is over student learning. And I said, yes, it is over student learning. They're like, but you come in and you take 20 minutes of our time on managerial things. So we need you to get on the agenda 2 weeks before, and you have 3 to 5 minutes and you're done. So I was like, okay, you know what? They're exactly right. So it cannot be a managerial time. This time is so important to be focused on student learning. We can't talk about field trips. We can't talk about, I don't know what else. Supply lists. There's another time for that. This is not the time to do it.
I so wish I would have had conversations with y'all like this when I was a principal, because I'm taking so many notes in my head going, oh, that's so right. That's brilliant. And I love too the relationship that you fostered with your people, where they feel comfortable enough to say, this is what we need and this is what we're not getting. And so we need this, because like you said, Cristi, their time is incredibly precious. And so I'd love to kind of hear from you two. COVID has flipped the switch on everything. So I'm sure it might look a little different this year. And I know that stress levels are higher and everything like that. So how have you adjusted to make this work even in times like we're living in right now?
Todd, I say that PLC is what saved us this year.
Yes,
I'm going to be really honest on my campus, because the practices and the beliefs that we have as a PLC campus is what we held tight to. So we held tight to our assessments. We held tight to our collaborative team meetings, and we really had to go back to pre-assessments and identifying, where were the gaps? Where was the unfinished learning from last year? What did they not learn yet that we need to make sure and address? And so when we sat around those tables, we still collaborated. We've still, whether it was virtually or in person, we still met. We still talked about what is it we want our students to learn next week? How are we going to reach them, whether it's virtually or in person? How are we going to make sure that they're getting the content that they're supposed to? How are we going to be able to check for their understanding? And we sat around that collaborative table. And because we had such a collaborative culture, we drew on everybody's strengths. So people that were comfortable with the technology piece, they stepped right in and they said, I've got this. I'll take this for the team. And then others who weren't, they did other work behind the scenes. And so we really feel like that PLC philosophy is what's held us so tight together, because we weren't in any isolated ship. We were all in the ship together. And even last spring, when everything was shut down, we still had a collaboration day. Ours was on Mondays because they wanted to have the rest of the week. But we still met every Monday. And Todd, it was a long day as a principal. I was on meetings from 8 o'clock until about 4:30 without a lunch break every Monday. But it was still important for us to have that collaboration time about how are we helping serve our students. And so, even though it may have looked different, none of the best practices ever went away.
Yeah. Cristi, did you find yourself kind of with the same kind of, or seeing the same kind of things happen as well?
Yes, I agree. I'm in a new district this year. So I was starting the professional learning community process again in a new district. It's my third district to do this. So a little different, but yes, it did save us. One of the things around professional learning communities is we keep, and Danieli and I say this all the time, the main things are the main things. And so in the time of COVID, we had to determine what are the main things. What are our essential standards? What is our guaranteed and viable curriculum? What are the things we're going to focus on, and let the other stuff, nice to know, not need to know. And we're going to intervene around that. And we're going to make sure all kids get it. That saved us.
Yeah. I'd love to know from both of you, I'd love to get some advice here, because one thing that I have heard from people, and I experienced it myself as an administrator, is you think you've got some buy-in to this. They're showing up to the meetings, but they're not always coming prepared. And they don't bring what you ask them to bring, so they can't talk about the data at that time, or there's an excuse or anything like that. How do you work through that?
It's a process. It doesn't start out. Danieli and I will tell you, the first year looks so different than the third and fourth year. We had to lead a lot of the meetings at first to say very specifically, bring this. We're going to be talking about this. Bring this set of data. Bring this content plan. We had to tell them exactly what to bring in small doses, not too much. And then we showed them how to do the work around that. Once you build that team, it's all about ownership. And Danieli hit on that earlier. Once they start owning their meetings, once they start owning their time together, once they start seeing results, we know. When do teachers really start believing in something? When they see results. So once they start seeing those results of the students moving up, and they're like, oh my goodness, look at that grade level. Look at what's happening there. We want to do what they're doing. When that starts happening, then the teachers buy in. Now, Danieli can tell you, your teachers lead their own meetings, right, Danieli? I mean, for the most part. Yeah. I mean, you walk into their time together, and the teachers are just moving and grooving, and they have everything together. So it takes time, but I would say at the very beginning, just be real specific of what you want them to bring and the work. And then they know that you're going to monitor it and talk to them about it, and then they'll bring it. Don't you think?
And then they also have to hold each other accountable, Todd. The teams, if you're coming to a planning meeting, at the beginning of the year, I always tell people, you have to explain, because you're going to have new members. You're going to have turnover. You're going to have people that have never worked in this philosophy. They don't know what you expect. So we need to be fair to our new hires, or those that are, new to the campus. What do you expect them to bring as a team? And they hold each other accountable. When everybody else has brought their stuff and you did it, it's uncomfortable. As a principal, you don't have to say anything, because they're sitting there. They're uncomfortable. And so they hold each other accountable. And then, for example, in RTI meetings, we had RTI meetings today, response to intervention. We meet every 3 to 4 weeks, and we monitor all of our student progress. In a PLC philosophy, we believe you have to have systematic processes to monitor student progress, and then have a plan to help intervene or help support that student to go further. So we had that today. And Todd, my teachers that have been doing this for so long, they come in and they can just recite the information off of their kids. And then teachers who are newer to it, they're having to look at their data, and we may have to coach more with our questioning and ask a little bit deeper questions to get the information we need. But when you see those teachers that have done it long enough, it's just second nature for them to come in and rattle off the specifics, not everything that's wrong with the child, but the specific ones that are causing them not to reach the goals that they have. And so, again, coaching those questions and then the accountability within the team. Sometimes as a principal, you don't even have to say anything when everybody else is doing it.
There's so many great nuggets of wisdom here. I'm just loving it so much. So I've got to know, as you do things for a while, there's certain pieces and parts of it that you really like, or that you're like, this is my favorite time when we do this. What is one of your big likes or favorites of doing this?
Oh,
I know mine.
What's yours, Cristi?
Talked about. I love the time that we talk every 3 to 4 weeks on every single student. So the first year that I was principal, I literally cried when I got our test results, our state test results. I bawled my eyes out because I looked at names on that roster that failed and I didn't know them. I mean, I want to cry thinking about it right now. And I said that moment, I will never put my head on the pillow not knowing where kids are. And that's when we started actually putting our RTI meetings on the calendar, because the year we had them, but they weren't on the calendar, we missed them all the time. Yeah. So I was like, we're putting them on the calendar every 3 weeks, and we're doing this. We're talking about every single kid by name and need. And Danieli, we had 700, 800 kids? And we, every 3 weeks, talked about every single student name and need. And we put them in the correct intervention, and we were very prescriptive and intentional in what we did. That's my favorite part. When we get to talk about every kid, and a team talks about what that child needs and who can help, and we're all in it together, it's so much fun.
Yeah. I would have to say, Todd, I think my most favorite, I love weekly meetings now. To the point where, like, one of my grade levels, third grade, think about third grade star. I mean, usually third grade teachers are really stressed out. I love the fact that the last 15 minutes of their meeting, they're done. They could go back to their rooms, and they just love to sit and visit. And they're bouncing ideas off with me, and we just have a collaborative, just family culture. So I love the team meeting days, and I love the days that a teacher comes in. We do something called Tier 1 Talks. And it's something we started where if a teacher's struggling with a student, any week they can bring them up. So if they want to bring them up every week, they can. And we sit around as a table with interventionists and teachers, and we brainstorm ideas, and it's manageable things, and it's teacher to teacher. Teachers are giving their peers this feedback or these ideas. Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing is having the teachers come back. When they come back and they say, it worked. It worked. Like he gets it. And it's made a difference in my classroom. And it wasn't something that had to wait till the end of the year. It was something that maybe it took 2 weeks to do. And when you see the teachers have those moments where they're sharing these great ideas, and then the peers come back and they say, it worked. It made a difference. Todd, my favorite experience this year has been, and it goes with the culture of a PLC, when a campus truly believes that these are our kids and not my kids. Mm-hmm. We have noticed that there's one grade level specifically that has really struggled coming back from that unfinished learning. Yes. They are just it's not because the teachers aren't working hard, they're killing themselves. But the kids are just still struggling, and you only have so many interventionists. You only have so much money to help purchase, to get a tutor. So I showed the data to the campus leadership team. So it's all grade level leads. And we said, what can we do to help this specific grade level? And Todd, they volunteered. Mm-hmm. One of their recess times, there's enough staff outside. They said one time a day for 3 days each week, we will take groups of kids and we will read them, not even kids in their grade level. Wow. And the kindergarten teacher said, because we love those kids. We know those kids. We know that they've got struggles. What can we do to help? And another grade level said, those kids are going to be in our grade level next year. Whatever we can do to help them be successful and grow now is only investing in them for the next year when we get them. And it wasn't another thing we have to do. Right. I can't believe it. Like, they had ownership of this. And Todd, when you see teachers that, are stressed, they've had a lot on their plate, say, I'm willing to give up this time and go, and you see them in the hallways reading with these kids, it is amazing because that's when you know, like, they truly get that these are our kids. It's not just that one teacher and that one grade level. This is all of our kids, and that's exciting to me.
So exciting.
Okay, you're giving me goosebumps here because, you know, as a principal, those are the moments you live for when you see people stepping up in unexpected ways, and they're doing it because they love every kid, like you said, and knowing that all of these kids are our kids. I love it. So as we close today, I'd love to hear from both of you. And for anybody listening right now or watching this later or listening on their podcast, you know, if they're going to walk away with one thing, what's the one thing you want them to walk away with?
The why. The why. Why, you know, you talked, Todd, earlier about some people don't want to do it. They're pushing back. They don't want the change. This is not, you know, too hard. We just want to do it the same way we've always done. But the why is because we're all in this together. And it's going to make your life easier. We have teachers now that will say to you, do not ever go back to the way it was. We value our time together collaborating. We value our time together looking at student data and making decisions for kids, for all kids. We value this collaborative time where we share kids. The why. The why is, in the long run, you do the work up front, and in the long run, you reap such rewards for every kid. And our student success just continues to go up and up and up. The rigor gets harder, but we do it together. We do it together. So
mine is, doesn't every kid deserve to be in a school that works together to help them be successful? Doesn't every kid deserve to have the best instruction possible, even if it's a new teacher or a veteran teacher? Doesn't every kid deserve a team that has their back and is constantly figuring out ways to support them? Doesn't every kid deserve an environment that's going to celebrate their success? Doesn't every kid deserve a school that's going to love them all the way around? Whether they have behavior or academic needs, they're going to work together to help them be successful. I think every kid deserves that. And when you have a team that believes in it, every kid can get that.
That's right.
I love it. Well, I have so enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I could have like 1,000 more questions for both of you, because this was one of my pain points of trying to figure out how to make PLCs work. And there's so much goodness here. So thank you both, from everybody at TEPSA, for sharing your brilliance with our members and viewers today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
for anybody listening or watching as well. Go and connect with Cristi and Danieli. They are both brilliant leaders here in Texas. And you can join us here on TEPSA Presents twice a month. You can check out all the past episodes at tepsa.org, on our Facebook or YouTube pages, or on our podcast, TEPSA Talk.